As the neon lights of the gas station lit up the vast expanse of the open desert around it, Jacob settled into his usual nighttime routine. The gas station, a family business handed down over generations, was located in a particularly remote part of Nevada, miles away from the next town. Midnight had always been a symbolic time for Jacob. It marked the halfway point of his night shift, a comforting reminder that dawn wasn't too far away. Most nights he could predict his visitors, truckers on long hauls, partygoers on their way back, or travelers on late-night road trips. But as the clock's hand inched towards midnight, an uneasy sensation settled in his gut. At precisely 12:01 a.m., the door's bell jingled softly. Expecting to see the familiar face of a trucker or perhaps a lost couple looking for directions, Jacob was met instead with a sight that caused a shiver to travel down his spine. Two children stood framed in the entrance, a boy and a girl. They couldn't have been more than 10 years old. The desert's cold breeze ruffled their strangely old-fashioned clothes, the boy in tattered overalls and the girl in a once white dress that now looked gray with age. As the door swung shut behind them, the gust of wind brought in a mix of the desert's arid scent and something else, something metallic and unpleasant. But what truly froze Jacob in place weren't their outdated outfits or the peculiar smell that seemed to surround them. It was their eyes, void of emotion. Iris or sclera, they were pitch black, resembling twin abysses that threatened to pull him in. For a few heartbeats, neither party said anything. The hum of the refrigerator units, the soft twang of a country song on the radio, the whisper of the desert winds, every little sound felt amplified in their unsettling silence. Jacob attempted to clear his throat to ask them what they wanted, but words seemed to evade him. Then, breaking the silence, the boy stepped forward, his voice emotionless, almost hypnotic. "Can we use your phone?" The girl, with an eeriness that matched her companion, added, "Our car broke down a little way from here." The immediate thought that sprang to Jacob's mind was, where were their parents? Why were they alone in the middle of nowhere at such an hour? And most importantly, how did they appear so suddenly, without him noticing any approaching vehicle on the long stretch of road leading to the gas station? Jacob's instincts screamed that something was wrong. But looking into the depths of those unnerving black eyes, he felt an urge to comply, a compulsion to help. He was torn between the deeply rooted human instinct to assist children in need and the chilling fear that gripped him. Jacob was about to guide them to the ancient rotary phone mounted on the wall behind the counter when the surroundings plunged into darkness. The humming ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. The only source of light was the haunting glow of the full moon casting elongated shadows on the cold, tiled floor. All the usual nocturnal sounds, the rustle of desert shrubs, the distant chirping of crickets, had gone mute. The abruptness of the blackout startled Jacob, causing him to knock a cup holder from the counter. The cups spilled everywhere, their echoing thuds sounding much louder than they should have in the oppressive silence. As he fumbled in the dark, trying to regain his composure, he could feel those inky black eyes boring into him, watching, waiting. "Seems like the power's out," Jacob finally managed to say, his voice shaky. The obvious statement was more for his benefit than theirs. "I've got a flashlight in the back, just give me a moment." But even in the dimness, Jacob could sense their stillness, their unwavering gaze. The girl responded in a hollow, monotone voice. "We don't need light. We just need to make a call." Chills ran down Jacob's spine. For a brief moment, he thought of bolting to the back room, locking himself in and waiting for dawn. But rational thought prevailed, reminding him of how absurd it would be to be frightened of two children. With renewed determination, he reached beneath the counter and retrieved a flashlight. Clicking it on, its beam slicing through the darkness, he handed it to the boy. "Stay close," Jacob said, guiding the way with the flashlight's beam as he led them to the phone. Each step felt heavy, the weight of trepidation making his movements deliberate. But as they approached the phone, Jacob's worst fears were realized. The line was dead, not just due to the power outage, but as if it had been purposefully severed. He had made a call just an hour ago to check on a late shipment. "I'm sorry, the phone, it's not working," Jacob said, struggling to keep the panic from his voice. The children just stared, unblinking. The boy finally broke the silence. "Can we wait here until our parents come?" Somewhere deep within, every instinct Jacob possessed was screaming for him to refuse, to ask them to leave. But against his better judgment, he found himself nodding, a silent permission granted. The oppressive weight of the darkness seemed to grow heavier as the minutes dragged on. The only noise was the almost inaudible hum from the refrigerated section and the distant call of night creatures, making the situation feel even more surreal. Jacob decided it would be best to occupy himself, hoping the children's parents would arrive soon. He began cleaning up, intermittently glancing at the children who stood in unwavering silence near the phone. The light from the flashlight painted their faces in eerie, shifting shadows. Their black eyes, now seemingly even darker, absorbed the beam without reflecting any light. The longer he looked, the more those eyes seemed endless, like twin voids. The boy spoke suddenly, his voice echoing slightly in the silent room. "Have you ever been alone, sir?" Caught off guard, Jacob stuttered. "I mean, yes, everyone's been alone at some point. Not just physically alone," the girl added, her voice soft and hauntingly melodic, "but truly alone where you felt a darkness so deep it threatened to swallow you?" Jacob, unnerved, hesitated. "I think everyone feels that way sometimes. It's part of the human experience." The children exchanged a glance. It was a look that transcended their age, brimming with an ancient understanding that no child should possess. Jacob's patience was wearing thin, the situation growing more surreal with each passing moment. "Look, do you want to try the phone again?" The girl then responded. "No need. They're already here." Confused, Jacob strained his ears, trying to catch any sound of an approaching car. But there was nothing. "Who's here?" he asked, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. "Our parents," the boy whispered, turning to the door. For the first time since their arrival, the bell above the door chimed. Two tall, shadowy figures stood silhouetted against the dim light from outside. Their features were indistinguishable, but their presence was overwhelmingly oppressive. The atmosphere inside the gas station grew cold, the very air seeming to thicken. Without another word, the children moved towards the entrance, their steps synchronized. As they reached the door, the boy paused, glancing back at Jacob. "You shouldn't be alone," he whispered, an eerie finality in his voice. And then, as swiftly as they appeared, the children and their shadowy companions vanished into the night. Jacob, paralyzed with a mixture of fear and confusion, took several minutes to gather himself. The power inexplicably surged back, lights flickering before stabilizing. The sounds of the night resumed, as if the world had taken a collective breath. Shaken to his core, Jacob closed the gas station early that night. He couldn't shake the feeling of those endless black eyes watching him, their warnings echoing in his mind. As days turned into weeks, Jacob tried to push the night's events to the back of his mind. But he couldn't escape a growing sense of dread, an unshakable feeling of being watched. Despite no evidence of any wrongdoing, he couldn't help but feel that he'd been given a grim omen. And sure enough, a week later, news spread in the town about another gas station, a few miles down the road. The sole attendant was found in a state of deep shock, rambling about children with void black eyes and shadows that spoke in whispers. No one could make sense of his tales, but Jacob knew. He understood the dark message they bore, even if he couldn't fathom its true meaning.